Hello, everyone. This is Gigi, the OG Gigi, in fact, and I am here to present my new podcast series titled The Alternative. So, this is the absolute first episode, and this alternative podcast is about alternatives to the way we see life, our options in life, and what we can do to give ourselves more freedom and more empowerment over our own lives to improve the quality of life in areas that we thought we could not before. So, today, the first episode of this podcast will be focused on identity. Now, identity is such an important part of our lives. How we identify ourselves, it changes everything. How we go through life and how we see ourselves or fit in the world or any group or society whatsoever. So it's actually very important that you identify yourself in a way that would actually improve the quality of your life and keep you safer and healthier. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Well, in my first podcast, I did the new LGBTQIA, where I changed the acronym to ABOUT, ABOUT. So that included the asexual spectrum, bisexual spectrum, open, unknown, unaware, and transsexual and transformative. That is the new acronym I came up with. And all of those are different types of identities of how we see ourselves, how we are different, and how we are all the same. So, what is your identity? How do you classify yourself? Exactly what are you? Or who are you? What is the first thing you do to identify yourself? Again, besides your name, what about you do you present to the world as the first thing, as your defining character? And why do you present that as your defining character of what you are or who you are? Now, the problem with how we identify ourselves is exactly what we choose to identify ourselves as. Do we identify ourselves by our demographics, like our skin color, place of or country of origin, our sex, or things like that? Or do we identify ourselves by more deeper aspects of who we are, like maybe our hobbies and interests, or our passions and things we care about? So my suggestion is that we stop identifying ourselves by our demographics and what we are. Why am I saying this? Well, for example, let's take me. I am pretty much every part of every most hated and most distrusted demographic there is on the planet. First of all, I am black. I am a woman. I am bisexual, plus more than bisexual. We get a whole lot of crap from straight and gay people alike. I am non-religious. I am anti-religious. I think religion is harmful to humanity, and I am an atheist. All of which have been documented as the most hated and distrusted groups on the planet. And if we factor in that I am against procreation and pregnancy because I'm in favor of quality of life and over quantity of life, then you have pretty much most hated person on the planet right here. And so, what if I actually identified myself that way and said, hi, I'm a black female bisexual non-religious atheist. Hey, what's up? Let's be friends. How many people would even bother to want to get to know me, and who would just hate me on the spot? Just seeing me and identifying myself by these demographics. How much baggage is there and history are there in these groups? Like people, it's like, oh, blacks did blah, blah, blah to my family. That's why I don't like black people, or they're going to replace us, or, oh, women did this to me, so I hate women, and atheists did this to me. So, there's a lot of history and baggage on every single demographic there is. You can't escape it. I mean, white people can't escape the huge baggage of what their ancestors did and what some of them continue to do today. And so identifying yourself that way, it just sets it up so that it doesn't foster connections or understanding or even a conversation. People just get so emotional and heated just over one of those topics that you can't have a true, deep, meaningful, progressive conversation that leads somewhere, that leads to understanding, that leads to progress in dealing with all of these problems and issues in history that we have all gone through. So how does me identifying myself by my demographics, things that aren't even who I am? I could identify myself as black, but my skin pigment isn't who I am. It's what I am, but it's not a defining character that makes me me. And just like with everything else, if you're defining yourself by a skin pigment, country of origin, sex, there are also a lot of stereotypes added onto these demographics as well. So, people might say, oh, you're not Asian enough. You're not Chinese enough. You're not black enough. You're not female enough. You're not man enough, because the way you're acting doesn't fit with our stereotypes of what we think you should be. And so by identifying yourself by that way, it not only forces the history and baggage onto you that we cannot escape from and can't progress with in conversations, it also adds a whole bunch of stereotypes that no human being could possibly 100% fit into. So what do we do about this? How can we change this? Why does it matter how we identify ourselves? And another thing that is also very important with our lives is that by identifying ourselves this way with our demographics, it also allows those who oppress us to get richer and more powerful and steal and rob us blind without any consequences. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at the Native Americans here in the United States and Canada, all of North America and South America, pretty much. So in history, they were brutally slaughtered for no reason, and they legitimately have a very reason to be angry about their oppressors. But the people who were the demographics, the same demographic as their oppressors, how would they identify? How can they empathize with the Native Americans? They say, well, I'm white, so I'm not Native American. I can't identify or even empathize or come close to understanding what you went through. So how can I help? How can I be an ally or even have other people? Why should I care? Has nothing to do with me. Doesn't represent me. And so the people who actually were responsible for oppressing the Native Americans, which are the same group of people who oppressed African Americans and kidnapped them into slavery, same group who oppressed the Chinese and the South Koreans, the Mexicans. Pick a group, any group, any demographic in any country, and there is so much oppression going on. But who is the oppressor? It's actually the same in every single instance, and that is the rich people. They benefit from us identifying ourselves this way. And it is so much easier to divide and conquer when we identify ourselves into these tiny groups that we see our differences instead of how we are all the same. So the oppressors, they don't care why we're fighting amongst ourselves as long as we are. They don't care if we are fighting amongst ourselves because of our sex, men versus women. It's like, oh, you don't pay me enough. Well, I do more of the work. Nope, they don't care. They just want us fighting amongst ourselves. They want us fighting over our skin pigment. Oh, you're not the superior sex. Your life doesn't matter. I'm better, or you deserve what you got. All because of a skin pigment, which has nothing to do with any of that. But it keeps us fighting amongst ourselves so that we don't collectively unite and fight the ones who have oppressed all of us. And that is the real issue, the real problem of why we need to change how we identify ourselves. So this is the alternative. So why don't we stop identifying ourselves by our demographics? Like what we are, our skin color, our sex, our sexual orientation, and start identifying ourselves by our hobbies and interests instead. Now, part of the problem with identity is that some of our identities were forced upon us. Like we were born into a Christian family or a Buddhist family. We didn't choose the religion. It was forced onto us. It wasn't like we were given the option to explore all the religions in the world and say, okay, I like this one, or maybe none at all. So we can't legitimately identify ourselves by any religion because we didn't choose it. We were forced into it, and other ways of thinking as well. We didn't choose it. So the first step to identifying yourself in another way is to take a deep look. What parts of your life, your belief system, your daily activities were actually forced upon you by your parents or your community or a tradition? And what are some things that you actually discovered or explored on your own and then chose to become? That's the difference. So before you can identify yourself by who you are, it is perfectly okay to say, you know what? I don't know yet. I don't know who I am yet. I haven't had the time or the ability to explore that yet. So this is your mission. This is for your quality of life here. Your quality of life cannot improve if we keep identifying ourselves in an easily divide and conquer way. and identifying ourselves by stereotypes and ways of life or ways of thinking forced upon us. So, once you realize that you don't know who you are yet, you know what you are, but you don't know who you are yet, that can put you on the path to self-discovery. Start exploring. Start exposing yourself to all ways of thinking. Expose yourself to maybe groups of friends that you wouldn't have had before because that was limited to you. Maybe expand your circle, expand your support system so that you can include more people who could possibly love and care about you than just the tiny isolated bubble of whites only or gays only or blacks only or Christians only. Expand that circle so that you can discover exactly who you are. And by doing that, you not only open your whole world up, but you also are able to see yourself in other people. And that is the greatest life lesson of all. And once we see ourselves as not a skin pigment or a sexual orientation, but just people all going through the same struggles, same problems, same issues in our daily lives, all because of the same group of people who oppressed all of us. No person is more oppressed or less oppressed than anybody else. We're all going through it together. And so, in order to fight back against our oppressors, we need to identify ourselves in a way that includes all of us. So, for example, if we identify ourselves not as Asian American, African American, Latin American, but just Americans, think of how powerful that could be. Like for voting rights, yes, it is purposely attacking Black and Latin communities. It is intentional, but instead of seeing it as Black and Latin, think of it as American rights being denied. Every American, regardless, should have the right to vote. And so once you see it as an American issue, then you can say, wait, I'm American too. This could impact me. And if anybody's rights are denied, what makes me think that mine won't be denied too? We're all Americans here. And that would help every American see the huge issue and the huge pressing problem of voting rights being taken away as the guaranteed American civil right that we are all should have. So it stops being a Black and Latin issue only, but all Americans unite and fight side by side against the oppressors trying to take it away from each of us. And that is just only one alternative of what we can do with our identities. Stay tuned for part 2, where I discuss even further the problem with identity and the alternative to make each of our lives better. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for another episode. Have a fabulous day, and I hope the quality of your life improves with each day. Take care.